Yeah. And, your happiness cannot be dependent on your partner. I used to think that was. Oh, my wife's upset. Oh, I can't be happy. Then one day I asked her, are you upset? She said, yes. Are you upset with me? No, honey, I'm not upset with you. Do you need any help? No, honey. Okay, let me know. That's it. And then it's her choice. But why should I get upset if she's upset? Unless it's something I can do. And that gives you the freedom to be the best version of you. And then maybe you uplift her. We cannot rely on that other person's happiness for our happiness. But parents do that. Parents do that. Wives do that. Husbands do that.
Welcome in to Menfolk Journeys, the podcast of great conversations with men. I'm your host, Chris Foster, and we're going to explore how we wear this beautiful and confusing mantle of manhood in the 21st century. Look, I get it. In public life, a lot of men are knuckleheads. But in private life, we can be thoughtful and we can be reflective if we have the right conversation and if we feel comfortable talking about our story. And we all have a great story to tell. And we can all learn from those stories. We can learn about who we've been, who we are, and who we want to be. And that's why we're going to have this podcast, and that's why we're going to have this conversation, so we can learn from other men just like us. And in this episode, we're going to talk with my new friend Anil. Anil has built a business in his adult life centered around relationships, about how to have loving relationships, and about how to love relationships. How to be a better partner, better spouse, better father, better friend. He's talked with lots of people and he's learned a ton. He's going to drop some pearls and help us become better for other people. Welcome in to Menfolk Journeys. Well, all right, Anil Gupta, welcome in.
Thank you for welcoming on this podcast, Chris. So excited to serve your audience.
Oh, well, I really appreciate you being here. First, let's tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Anil Gupta. I live in a town called Celebration, built by Disney near Disney World. Been here 23 years. I've married 2 kids. My wife has 2 kids. I have 2 kids. They're exactly the same kids. So, I didn't want to confuse people. But I was suicidal in 2008. And from that low point, everything changed. I found out who I am. I found my mojo. I found my gift. I found my identity. And it's not what happens in life, it's who you become. So now I've become the love doctor, and I help people in their relationships. I help couples, singles, and families reunite and bring more love into their lives. I'm so blessed to do this. That's why I'm sharing my gift all over the world.
That is a wonderful reimagining of your identity after low point. And I don't necessarily want to get into your low point unless you want to bring it up. But I am curious, though. You just mentioned now helping people with their relationships, men, women, children, families, whether it's spousal, well as familial, but also the relationship of the self. And I've got you touched on something, I think, that, and Anil, I don't know if this is generational, but when I was growing up, at least, when I was told what men needed to focus on, it was power, it was influence, it was status, it was material wealth, it was my career. It was, get married, but it wasn't about the quality of my marriage. It was get married necessarily, right? And it wasn't necessarily about building or how to build quality relationships. I'm telling you, there was no course that I took. There was no big discussion that we had when I was in middle school or high school where they said, okay, let's talk about how to build really high quality relationships. Some kids look for their parents as a model, but as we know, some parents aren't necessarily the best models for great relationships. And so I'm wondering, though, because there's more discussion now, do you think that that's changing with the younger generation? Do you think that younger people are moving into, especially younger men, are moving into adulthood with better tools and better discussions about relationships? Or are we still missing it again for this new generation?
I strongly feel that they're losing it, because the problem nowadays, Chris, is that a lot of kids are enabled and entitled, and they just don't know how to have a relationship with themselves, with their parents, with people, intimate partners. And it's causing a lot of problems. When we grew up, we had adversity, and a lot of parents decide, I don't want my son, my daughter to go through adversity, so I make life easy for them. But that's the worst thing you can do.
It's the kiss of death.
Yeah. And I just wrote on my LinkedIn, I just wrote an article about a caterpillar going into being a chrysalis, into a cocoon, and then becoming a butterfly. And, it has to struggle to get out of that cocoon. If you try and help it, you're making it worse for the emerging butterfly, because it needs the pressure to fill the wings up with air. If you make it easy for it, it's not going to be able to do that. Then it's disabled for life. And it's the same thing. We, as parents, the biggest mistake we make is that we don't throw adversity out at our kids that they can reasonably handle. We're so afraid of losing love for them. We're so afraid of them rejecting us, but that's not our job. Our job is to give them the ability to handle life. That's what happens in nature, but unfortunately, we're not doing that, and it's causing a big problem with the parents and the kids.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think about what Michelle Obama said, and my wife and I repeated that. My wife especially repeated that mantra, especially when our girls were teenagers. She said, look, we're not trying to raise great kids. We're trying to raise great adults, right? And it's like, okay, if that's the case, we're trying to raise these kids so they can become great adults, which means that they have to go through some adversity and they have to experience that without being, shielded. I had another conversation with the man where we talked about that the fear of having our kids fail, right, or the aversion to having our kids fail and learning from that failure, I think is the kiss of death for parents now. But I hadn't thought about it, Anil, as to how it affects the relationship between the parent and the child. I think at some level, a child wants their parents to create boundaries, create disciplines, create expectations so that they can grow. I would think, right?
Well, they don't know, you see. And what we have to do as parents is throw adversity at our kids that they can reasonably handle. That way you're making them stronger. So when Richard Branson was 5, he was thrown into the middle of a field and told to get home. I wanted to do the same with my kids, but my wife said no, and rightly so. But what we did, we put them into central London and told them to get home. But we didn't just throw them in. We took them 100 yards from home, 200, 300, 400, 500. We took them on trains so that they could get comfortable. Then we said, okay, you're on your own. But we were 20 feet behind them, but they could only contact us if there was an emergency. But we told them what to do in an emergency anyway.
Sure.
And then when my kids were 18, we sent them around the world by themselves.
Good.
So they can handle anything.
Yeah. So how old are your children now?
34 and 32. I haven't seen my 18-year-old since she went around the world. I think she got lost or something, but I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding.
That was awesome. Yeah, they went around the world and I haven't seen them. I think they're 32, but I think that's a bit, but they've been great, clearly.
Yeah, funny. Yeah. And you have to laugh, kids nowadays aren't laughing at
So I guess my
silly
question
things.
for you, Anil, with you and your wife, what is your relationship now with your adult children?
Hey, let me just say, my wife's relationship with the kids, especially with the grandson, is like over the top. It's like 50 out of 100. Mine, I would say, I use the scale of 9 and 10s, would be like a 9 and an 8.
Oh, great.
Because I'm focused on this. I'm not totally focused on the children. I'm focused on my mission to serve
Sure.
as many people as I can. But she's just focused on them, and then rightly so, because she's not working and she's just being a love bug.
Sure. Well, congratulations on your grandfatherhood. I think that is
Yeah.
marvelous.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it gets me thinking. Then you must then actually, I'll ask it as a question rather than a statement. Do you think about your relationships with your children and your grandchildren as different kinds of relationships? And do you think about how you cultivate those now that your children are parents themselves?
It's a great question, and each individual has different needs. My son has different needs, so I'm going to treat him differently.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter has different needs. She has different needs, different expectations, different skill sets. She can handle X, my son can't. My son can handle X, and she can't. So, and again, my wife, and the secret is you have to be present. You have to listen. You have to be alert. That's a problem nowadays. We don't spend time being present. We're all on the phones, watching TV, and not listening.
Mm-hmm.
When your wife says something, listen to her, because she wants to be heard, she wants to feel understood, and she wants to feel safe. When you don't listen to her, she doesn't feel safe, she doesn't feel understood, and that can cause some friction.
Yeah. So I guess a question that I would ask you, Anil, is the paying attention to other people is, I guess, one of the first steps in having a real relationship, right? Because you're trying to understand their motivations, where they're coming from. And if you do pay attention, you understand what they're a little bit worried about, what they might be worried about, but not telling you, right? I mean, you all know when you raise teenagers and when they're in high school, they're not going to tell you everything, but you can look around and be like, something's up if you're being aware. Is this a skill that can be taught? And have you kind of seen throughout your coaching of relationship coaching that you can impart skills for paying attention? Or is it really start with intention? And is it a natural human ability that we just oftentimes overlook?
So it all stems from one thing, which is awareness. Awareness gives you clarity. Clarity gives you focus. Focus gives you action. Action gives you results. Results gives you momentum, which gives you everything. So what if I told you we never had any adolescent behavior? Would you believe me?
Like as you as parents, like adolescent behavior, meaning rebelliousness or
Yeah.
I would believe you because I believe that would exist in some families.
Yeah. And it's easily achieved. You know that do your listeners have a sense of humor?
Of course they do.
Okay. What's the biggest mistake parents make?
Well, the biggest, I think the biggest mistake parents make is giving children everything they want whenever they ask for it.
Okay, that's one of them. The biggest mistake parents make is having kids. You see,
yes.
if you didn't have kids, there'd be no parenting issues. Okay. So really, the biggest mistake is this: parents expect the child to come into the adult world. When I was your age, I had 3 paper rounds. I was saving money. I paid for college. I paid for everything. They don't want to hear that.
Right.
You have to get into their world. What are they fearful of? What's going on? Who's their favorite band? Who's their favorite team? Who do they hang out with? Who they hang out with is huge.
Yeah,
We would always vet.
Yeah, that is actually, to me, what I learned with our girls. They're both young adults now. And when they were, one of the things that kind of bound them throughout their formative years was both of them were interested in ballet for many years. And then my oldest daughter was interested in jazz singing, right? She's a vocalist. And so that created a cohort for both of them, right? But within that, there are niches and there are some friends that are good for them and some friends that are bad for them. There was a time when my youngest had a friend group and a cohort that really wasn't appropriate, and we kind of had to steer away, right? And to kind of, move to a place where she had friends that we felt comfortable with that were kind of simpatico in terms of our values, in terms of what we wanted to see our girls do and achieve for themselves. I think that though, but that takes a parent being aware, but it also takes the child trying to understand what they want out of relationships. And man, that's hard as a youngster, right? Especially if they might not have a model of their parents having a cohort or having friends or having their own relationships.
So I can simplify that for you. I would tell anybody, anytime you want to make a friendship, a business friendship or an intimate friendship, there are three things you have to look for. The first thing is integrity. Do they tell the truth? Do they do what they say they're going to do? Do they gossip? Do they complain about other people? Are they honest? That you cannot have a friend without integrity. You cannot have a lover without integrity. You cannot be in business with someone without integrity. Mm-hmm. The second trait is they have to be loving, not just to you, not manipulatively. Hey, I'll do that if you do that for me. How do they treat waiters? How do they treat coffee baristas? How do they treat, people, in hotels, whatever. The third thing is they have to be healthy, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, and financially. Mm-hmm. So, see, when youngsters try and find a partner, they don't do any due diligence. They fall in love.
Really? What a shock.
And then, they have 6 relationships. Each one they thought was the right one, but it's 100% fail rate. But if they use this filter, it's a 90 plus percent success rate.
In terms of the filter of having integrity, being loving
and healthy,
and being healthy. So I think that being the healthy is a hard piece. I think that, when I was reading about your website and the work that you do, which is phenomenal, and Anil, congratulations on that. I think it's beautiful what you're doing. I think that especially now in social media, people are really struggling with real connected relationships. I also think COVID didn't help. I think COVID really broke away some of those, what we call weak ties, and the ability to have weak ties of someone in the grocery store, someone that you see casually, right? And really remember how to develop those kind of relationships. And especially for young kids who didn't have that or kind of missed out for a couple of years, they had to relearn. And where I'm going with this is being healthy, though, individually, means that, to use your rubric, you have to have integrity, you have to be loving, and you have to be healthy to yourself.
Absolutely.
So how do you, as a person, how do I know if I'm acting how do I kind of figure out if I'm not lying to myself, right? I mean, that's a thing to learn and a skill to learn, I would think.
It is. And if you're asking that question, it means you're fairly integrous.
Right. Just even asking the question.
When you don't ask yourself, that means, you're not being accountable.
Right.
And so and it's a muscle. It's a muscle.
Okay. So talk more about that. Do you think that you can learn to have more integrity and build that muscle up within yourself as a person?
Yeah. So I remember doing a course. I was around 38. And in that course, they talked about integrity. I had no idea what it was. And they say, well, have you stolen anything? And I thought, no, I haven't stolen anything. I thought, oh, my God, I did. I stole something. I stole one, maybe 2 comics from this store. And I was 38. And I was about 7. So about 29 years earlier. 31 years earlier, I went back to the store and said, hey, I stole this. I'm sorry. Let me pay you back. They said, oh, we didn't own the store then. And I stole something at university once. So I called them and said, look, I did this. And I could have been struck off. I could have, because I was a professional, but I had to do it. It was the right thing to do. And I said, look, let me pay you back. I'm sorry, I was just in the bad company. Apologize. And then I went to a lady who owned a cherry tree. And I knocked on the door, said, "Look, I'm so sorry. I used to steal cherries from your cherry tree. That was the best." She said, "Oh, that wasn't our house." But that's what integrity is. You can always clean up.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important thing is intent. So if you see me walking down down the road with my wife, you see me holding hands, think, "Oh my gosh, there's the love doctor. He's so romantic. He's so loving." Then all of a sudden, you see me throw my wife to the floor. You can say to me, "Anil, you're a fraud." So why? He said, "You threw your wife to the floor." I said, "Yeah, and I'll do it again." And you think, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Chris, there was a car coming around the corner. I threw my wife to safety." See, my intent was pure. You may not interpret it that way, but this is what life is. As long as you have pure intent, it doesn't matter what other people think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're so scared of. What other people think of us is none of our business.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to live that, like you said, with the right intentions, with the right integrity. I also think too, though, even if you have the right, well, maybe I don't know, Anil. Even if you have the right intent, do you still think you can have bad relationships?
Absolutely. So there's the intent, but it's also the communication.
Mm.
It's it's not what you say; it's how you say it. You know, love you, see it, but I could say, "Honey, I want to thank you for two beautiful kids, standing by me, supporting me, guiding me, nurturing me, feeding me, and just being there for me. You know, I would give up my life for you. You're an amazing soul. Thank you, thank you, thank you."
Well,
But
that's something that,
communication is everything. Yeah.
yeah, that's a beautiful thing to say to your spouse, and something your spouse does want to hear. And that idea of kind of having a relationship where you might not have all the communication tools to really adequately express your love or express what that person means to you. Or do you think that, especially for men, because we tend to be less communicative than women just in general, right? I think that's pretty fair to say.
Yeah.
Um, so in my experience growing up, my folks were divorced when I was 5. So my dad was actually in real living memory, never in my house on a daily basis. And he was very communicative, and he was a psychiatrist, so he talked to, but I only saw him every other weekend, right? So I didn't have the presence of a male presence in the house all the time talking with me. So I grew up with my mom, and my mom was a talker, tuck, 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 all the time, never stops. So I grew up communicative. It's the only way to be. And what I realized when I got older, I thought all men were like that, but now I was like, no. So why do you, Anil, why do you think men have a harder time communicating and formulating the words that they really want to say, but they can't figure out how to say it?
It's emotion. We were taught to be strong, not share our emotions, not to be vulnerable. And also, we're fixers. Men like to fix stuff. Women don't want to be fixed. They want to talk. They want to talk. They want to talk. And, we want to get to the bottom of the solution. What's the bottom line? We don't want to hear all the other stuff. I went to put some gas in, and then I did. We don't want to hear that stuff. Just tell me what the bottom line is. And it's just the way that we grew up. When we're buddies, we don't talk much, but when we say something, it means a lot. So we talk less, listen more. Women, unfortunately, there's that dichotomy. They speak more, listen less.
Mm-hmm. Now, with your male friendships when you were growing up, did you fall into that same pattern?
Um, I let me just think. Yeah, we were just, I played a lot of sports. So the people who play sports have different conversations than people who don't play sports.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's more rough and ready. There's joking about, there's banter, which you do with teammates. Yeah, but, at school, it's totally different. You, you don't spend that much time with people. So there's not a depth of conversations you would have. It would be subject matter like biology, chemistry, or what was on TV last night.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different conversation. In those days, you would go out and play, and then you would have different conversations. Nowadays, they're all on smartphones or communications. So it's a totally different conversation, and there's no emotion around it.
Yeah, I'm actually concerned about that for a younger generation being less emotional than we were. Because, I mean, growing up with pals and stuff like that, I was probably just me. I was probably a little bit more emotional and a little bit more in touch just because I think growing up with a emotional, volatile, highly communicative mother, that's kind of how I grew up, right? That's kind of how I was raised. And so I might have been a little bit more talkative than most of my friends. And I find that now, as an adult, I have a wonderful cohort of male friends. And our conversation range from everything, right? It's football to recipes. Believe me, we talk about recipes, but then it's also about you know you know stuff that we see, right? Hot girls we remember in high school, or Charlie's Angels we had the crush on, and all this. So it runs all over the place, right? But I have found that as we have grown up with each other for the last 15 plus years, which is an adult, and our conversations are better now, Anil, simply because we're having more conversations. It's like you talk about with the muscle. Our conversational muscles have strengthened. Is that the way to go, especially as you start, coaching folks, is just to simply have more conversations to try to get better at them?
Again, it's a muscle. And then, the way I coach people is to listen and just share your heart. Whatever, don't think, what should I say? Just say it. And it's as you get better and better at it, and you get the positive feedback, it becomes very encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
And then nowadays, we never know what our friends are going through. So by you being communicating with them, and here's a great question: you can ask someone, "Hey, how are you?" And they'll always say fine. Then ask them, "How are you really?"
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll see them opening up, because we never know what other people are going through, and we've been taught to keep our feelings to ourselves. But we need to support each other. And with your menfolk, you can say, "Hey guys, if ever you're stuck, you're in pain, or there's something going on, let's share it, and let's help each other, or confide in one person."
Right.
Set that up in advance. There's no
So,
shame.
no, there's no shame at all. So, do you know the actor Brett Goldstein? Are you familiar with him? He was in a TV show called Ted Lasso.
Oh, I love Ted Lasso.
Okay, it's Roy.
Roy. Which one's
Roy
Roy?
Kent. So Roy Kent, he's the gruff
Oh,
guy.
yeah.
So Brett Goldstein is Roy Kent. And he said something really interesting on an interview one time. And he said, when he was growing up, men never talked about anything, right? Substantial or meaningful or emotional. He said that's why. That's why I think my dad would always watch, football, to them soccer, right? Football on the telly with his friends, with his mates, because they could drink a pint and watch the football, and they could talk, but they didn't have to make eye contact because they were watching the television, right? It was this thing that was there. And I thought that was a pretty interesting observation, because to me, it kind of shows that there still is this, I don't call it, maybe it's a fear, maybe it's a reluctance, maybe it's a embarrassment to actually be open and honest with another man or even another woman about the things that they're feeling. Are we getting better at this, Anil, or are we still stuck in the same quagmire we've always been?
I think it's a lot better. But the other thing is, when you're working really hard, the last thing you want to do is have that conversation when you get home.
Right.
You've got decision fatigue. You don't want to know about the washing machine. And I've said this to my wife: as soon as I get home, don't jump on me.
Right.
And tell me, this happened, that happened. Give me some time. And then just ask me, "Hey, honey, is this a good time to talk?" Because sometimes you just want to chill out. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a beautiful thing about watching soccer. You don't have to speak. You
Right.
can just be in the moment, and you can just have it really light and fun and exciting, and you've got that banter going on.
No, I agree, and I think it's a wonderful thing to do with fellas because you can just be with each other and just enjoy each other's company. It's something. It's interesting. By the way, I have to ask, what sports did you play?
I played tennis, badminton, squash, field hockey,
Oh, the
ping
rackets.
pong, all
Interesting.
the racket sports. And
Interesting.
then I had an accident on the 25th of August.
This past August,
Yeah,
what happened?
I fractured my left wrist
Oh my God, how'd you do that?
in pickleball.
Pickleball is the source of so many injuries. Come
I
on.
know, I know, but I wasn't actually chasing the ball. I just was tired, dehydrated, and I just slipped and fell. But I broke it in 9 places, 2 pins,
Good God.
dislocation, horrible. And I was really upset for 2 minutes. Then I was grateful
Why?
because I'm right-handed,
Right, of course.
and I just bought a brand new paddle and it wasn't damaged. So, but it. This is what we need to do: be grateful for what we have, because there's so much that we have that other people don't have.
Yeah. You know what? I think that's true. I think especially when you reach a level of understanding your mind and understanding emotion, suddenly you do have something really to be grateful for, right? Your full faculties, a command of who you are. And I want to touch on something too, because we just talked about the male friendships. My male friendships are vital to my life, and all of us. We feel very grateful and fortunate to have each other. Right? It's about 20 of us, and it's a really important group, and they fulfill a part of my life in terms of relationships that are really important, and they fulfill a part that my spouse doesn't fill, which is fine, and I think that is fine. I think that, my wife and I were reading this really interesting article where they said in the past, marriages were not expect to be the be all end all relationship that would completely fulfill you on everything in your life, right? That a marriage was maybe a marriage of convenience. In the past, of course, it was a marriage of transaction. Or as we progressed later on, marriages were apart. But maybe don't ask your spouse to be the one you go hiking with or the one you go adventuring with. Maybe the spouse isn't the one you go watch a football game with. Maybe the spouse is the one that is not the person to do these other things. So I kind of have been evolving my stance where my different relationships I have, friends or family, my spouse, my children, I'm not asking that person to be this be all end all relationship where everything that I have can be met by this one person. I'm curious as your thoughts on that perspective.
Yeah, that's fatal. You see, do you know what a man's biggest fear is?
Being alone?
No, it's the loss of freedom.
Mm,
So that's why they don't get married, or they're reluctant to get married. It's not commitment. They feel that if they get married, they're not going to be able to have the boys' nights out. They're not going to be able to do this and this and this, play golf, whatever. So it's so important that you have your freedom. I do things I play all these sports. My wife doesn't.
sure.
I do this. She does that. And then
Mm-hmm.
when we're together, we can just be together.
And do
So
this,
I,
do
I
the
like
things
my
that the two
freedom.
of you like.
Yeah. Otherwise, if I bring her to the pickleball court, she's going to get upset with me because I'm not going to be friendly. And I'm going to play my way, and then it just doesn't work. And why upset her? And
Mm-hmm.
she does things, and I don't want to go. And she says, well, I said, honey, you go, you have fun. Oh, if you want to come, you can. No, 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 you go. And then she can have the freedom with her girlfriends.
Right.
But if you're entwined and you're doing everything together, there's that loss of freedom. There's loss of that ability to have fun with different people. Then when you're together, it's a special occasion.
Yeah. So to me, that's almost one of those uh, check marks of a successful relationship. Is that, do you think, where the other person is allowed to just be themselves and perhaps a different side of them with other people?
Yeah. And, your happiness cannot be dependent on your partner. I used to think that was. Oh, my wife's upset. Oh, I can't be happy. Then one day I asked her, are you upset? She said, yes. Are you upset with me? No, honey, I'm not upset with you. Do you need any help? No, honey. Okay, let me know. That's it. And then it's her choice. But why should I get upset if she's upset? Unless it's something I can do. And that gives you the freedom to be the best version of you. And then maybe you uplift her. We cannot rely on other person's happiness for our happiness. But parents do that. Parents do that. Wives do that. Husbands do that.
It's really interesting. I like that idea because there was a phrase that someone told me. I don't believe it, but I thought it was interesting that she said it. She said, well, we're only as happy as our unhappiest child. And I was like,
No, 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 no.
exactly. I was like, I don't
No,
think that that's a right way to go.
no. Oh my God. That's so limiting.
I think so. Also, think about the pressure you put on that child. Oh, you must be happy in order for me to be happy.
Yeah. And the thought that goes through a person's mind is, I'm a failure. I didn't do it right. I could have done better. It's my fault. And then we beat ourselves up. But the thing is, our job as parents is to bring up kids that can handle themselves and be happy. That's it. They don't have to be successful. They don't have to, achieve greatness. As long as they're happy and doing things that they love and they can handle whatever life throws at them, then they will do something that will be magnificent. And it doesn't mean it's a big thing. They can have a magnificent friendship with someone or a magnificent relationship. But we have to give them the tools.
Yeah. So I guess a question that I have is how did you become so interested in relationships? It's not everybody is, but Anil, why you?
Well, it's not that I was. It's just that I was in one, and my wife and I we used to fight a lot back then. And then I just thought there must be a different way. But Chris, the biggest thing around relationship is the feeling you get from changing someone's life. It's the greatest thing. And you've experienced it when you've helped one of your buddies, and out of a situation, you felt great. And imagine doing that every day, 10 times a day. It's a beautiful thing.
We'll be right back. So that's when you started to say, okay, now I understand how to actually give this in a relationship. How can I maybe tell other people what I've learned? Is that where you kind of started to move along? Because you mentioned in '08 you had a real crisis, a personal crisis, and then out of that, kind of, it's the archetype, Anil, of the hero going in through the wilderness and coming out transformed, right? And you and hitting, quote unquote, hitting rock bottom and reinventing yourself. And then out of that, I guess, was your focus on figuring out, how do I work with relationships and how do I understand them better and how do I help other people with their relationships? Was that the experience you had?
I wish it was that pure, but it stems from vanity. So I was with my friend Louis, and he said, Anil, you should do events. You've helped me, you've helped my wife, you should do an event. And I thought, I'm not so sure. And he said, what's going on? Why don't you want to do one? I said, well, Louis, what if no one turns up? I'm going to be so embarrassed. He said, Anil, if no one turns up, no one will know. And I thought about that and I thought, okay. So that's how it started. I did 5 people, then 8 people, then it just got bigger. But I never, well, I had experienced the feeling of helping other people, but when there's more people and then they're looking at you and they're looking for guidance, it felt really good. it's a lot of responsibility, but it felt amazing. So it was very addictive. It still
That's
is.
Yeah, I can see that happening, where there's a feedback of energy, from an audience that comes in, and you're sensing that they're changing. And my hunch is that you've got. I mean, I've done presentations to know that you get a feeling of energy when people are taking in what you're giving, right? And they're kind of expressing that, or just seeing them, call it the light bulb goes off or something. There's some kind of interesting expression that you can pick up on. Have you experienced that? I'm sure in your events.
Oh, you can see a weight lift off their shoulders. Suddenly, they have more energy. They have this smile. We would take photos of people before the event and after the event, and
Oh,
they
really?
just lit up. Oh my gosh, it's the most beautiful thing.
That's a beautiful way to kind of show, because the face doesn't lie, right? That
Yeah.
before and after. So Anil, what have you learned from your own coaching?
What have I learned from my own coaching is to be so amazing that I cannot be ignored. I'm working on being the best version of me wherever I go. So, Chris, I have this 3 foot rule. Anyone who comes within 3 feet of me, I'm going to say something to them. I'm going to compliment them, their hair, their clothes, handbag, or whatever it is, or strike up a conversation. See, we never know what other people are going through. By you having that conversation could drastically change their lives.
It's
And it
true.
feels good too.
Sure, absolutely. And what else have you learned?
Um, say yes. When there's an opportunity, say yes, work it out afterwards and get things done. Don't wait. Don't say to yourself, I have plenty of time. Just get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And, create magical moments. Life is not about the number of breaths you take, but the number of times your breath is taken away. Don't lead a life of mediocrity. Have fun. Jump in some puddles, walk in the rain. Be grateful for the small things. I was on a train and there was a lady sitting across the table, and I had to ask her to help me. I said, "Can you open my bag of chips? I can't open it." It's the small things that are big things. Be grateful for the small things.
Mm-hmm.
The big things will always get themselves handled.
Yeah, no, I see that. And also too, our lives are made up of so many small moments anyway, right? I mean, our lives rarely have big dramatic events all the time, unless you consider like your choice each moment as a dramatic event. And I guess one question that I have is, you start talking with these various couples, what have you learned, or what kind of patterns do you see in relationships where relationships seem to not be as good as they could be? Are there consistent things that you see when relationships kind of are, I don't want to say suboptimal, but where they could be improved?
Yeah, absolutely. So when people are dating, they make each other their number one priority. They get married, then they don't necessarily continue to do that. So it becomes, instead of 100, it becomes 80-20, 70-30. And then it becomes transactional. Well, he didn't do that for me. I'm not going to do that for him. So then things deteriorate, communication deteriorates. But as a man, you have to know what a woman wants, and as a woman, you need to know what a man wants. So a man wants respect. So ask your man this question: what can I do to make you feel more respected? Women, your men can ask your women, what can I do to make you feel more loved? And what else can I do? What else can I do? I did this exercise today, and it was a game changer. You know, the the lady thought something of the man, but the man had a different thought entirely. And she said, "Honey, I didn't know." See, we have to communicate
Yeah.
and ask questions. Are you upset? Are you upset with me? How can I support you? What would you like me to do? You don't have to guess.
It's so interesting you say that, Anil, because oftentimes people will guess or assume. right? Someone comes in, or they're like, they're saying something, and you're like, ah, and it's like, oh, was that about me and what I said? Did I do something? I remember way back, um, my now wife and I were living together as a couple, and she came home on a Friday afternoon. I was home a little bit earlier from work, and she came home from work, and I was like, hey, it's Friday. And she looked at me and went, like this big cat hiss. And I was like, what the fuck? What did I do? What did I do? Where did I mess up? And she just went into another room, and I was like, and I was kind of shocked, and I was freaking out. Right. And she came out about 10 or 15 minutes later. She said, I'm sorry I hissed at you. I just had a really bad day at work and the commute was terrible, and a terrible conversation right before I went home, and I just needed to be alone. That's why I hissed. I was like, oh, Roger, got it. Thank you. Right. Thank you for the explanation, because for 15 minutes, I was in panic mode about something I did or didn't do. Right. And she's a very communicative person, so she was able to say, "Look, it's just I just had to hiss you away for a minute, so I could be by myself." But it was one of those things where, had I, of course, you learn as you start going through your relationships. You learn when to confront, when to talk, when to let things go. If you're paying attention, and I think you gets to your point, Anil, if the intentions are right. Like if my intention at that point was to be like, well, F you, I'm not going to talk to you when you come out. I'm going to be surly, and I'm not going to, I'm going to show you the hand because you showed me the hand, right? It just spirals out into a terrible place.
Yeah. And, that's where the awareness comes in. Ask yourself, um, was it me? Did I do something? Is it something else? What could I ask? How could I show up?
Mm-hmm.
In the mornings, my wife puts toothpaste on my toothbrush.
Really?
She stopped doing it. Yeah, because of my hand, I couldn't do it.
Oh.
This is my movement in my hand. I can't. I can only do this. It's shaking. So
is that hard. A permanent? Is it permanent damage?
No. Okay. It's just being in a cast for 6 weeks. So every time I look at that, I think, oh my God, that's so beautiful. It's a small thing, but it's a big thing. So you could do small things around the house. Leave her little notes.
Mm-hmm.
Just clean things up, tidy things up. It's the little things that become the big things.
I think that's true. And I guess with, especially with children, as you're trying to, because right now I know that my relationship with my daughters is different than they were when they were youngsters, and it should be, right? I mean, I'm no longer what I tell them is I'm no longer an active parent. I can't be, right? You guys are young adults. You're off the payroll. You're living your lives. I'm not going to be active like in your grill in your life, but I'm here for guidance, and I can ask questions if you want me to ask questions, and I'm here for a sounding board if you want to talk about stuff. And it was really hard for me though, Anil, and to your point earlier about men being fixers and me being a fixer and me being the kind of person that wants the stability, right? I don't want the volatility. So if someone was upset, I'm like, okay, what can I do? Like, what should I do? And there are times when they said, just don't do anything, just listen. And that was hard for me to learn.
Oh yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
And so, do you find that for men, especially when you talk with them, what kind of advice do you have for them so that they can start learning how to do that? Do you have some tools or communication advice that you give them?
Yeah. So men, we're great at fixing. Don't fix her. She's not wanting to be fixed. Be present. She's wanting you to be present. She wants to feel heard. She wants to feel understood. Just listen and
Mm-hmm.
just be present to her. You don't have to do anything afterwards. And then comfort her. Make her feel safe. Make her feel loved.
So, I guess a question for you then is, and now that you've learned all of these tools, and you've seen them in practice, um, I'm sure that mistakes are made all the time. But are you every day practicing these kind of relationship skills with your son and your daughter and your grandchildren now?
I do, but it's not that we don't have flare-ups.
Sure.
Because I get with families, it's emotional. There are things my daughter may do that I don't agree with, but I'm willing to let that go. But there are things that I think are too important that I'm not willing to let go of, and I'm willing to not get her upset, but allowing her to get upset with me because it's too important to me. But I'm not going to get emotional. I'm just going to say, honey, this is a very important thing. It's a 10 out of 10 that we talk about this, and then we can talk. And ultimately, the decision is yours.
Mm-hmm.
Because has the freedom to decide, and she has to live with her consequences.
Yeah, but at least also she knows where you're coming from emotionally, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things you talk about, the communication side. I think it's oftentimes people are afraid to say what they're actually feeling about something for fear of conflict or of hurting the other person's feelings or having a fight.
And there's a way to handle that. So if I would say, hey, honey, there's something on my mind that I would love to talk to you about. Would you be open for me to share?
Who says no to that?
Really?
Right?
Yeah. Instead of just blurting it out, say, look, this is what I'm concerned about. I would love your feedback.
Yeah, that's a great communicative style because it allows the person to know that you're coming from a place of observation and that you're thinking about it, but gives them the space to not feel threatened or that you're attacking them.
Yeah. And all you're seeking is clarity, just a conversation. And then you understand their point of view. So, oh, okay, I understand your point of view. Oh, I didn't see it that way.
Sure. And there still will be disagreements because sometimes that still happens. Have you found that have you found your children to be good communicative talkers and good folks talking about relationships because of the work that you've done, that you might have created that culture within your family?
No, maybe not so much around relationships, but they're always communicating, always.
Mm-hmm.
A bit too much, in my opinion. They're over communicative. I just want to know the facts because I'm too busy. But yeah, they communicate very powerfully and very clearly with each other. I just jump in and out. I don't want to know the details. I don't want to know the flight number. I don't want to know you're at the airport. I don't know you've got into the Uber. I don't want to hear that stuff. It's of no consequence to me because I've got things to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all about communication. It's not what you say; it's how you say it.
Yeah. So if people don't have models for that in their home life, clearly they can look at your work, look at your coaching work, and see. But outside of that, where do you think are some good models, especially for young men, to find it? And for the men who are parents out there, if you're not a good communicator or that's something you need to work on, where can they go for better help in terms of becoming a better communicator and asking questions just like the way you asked it? I thought that was such a beautiful way to phrase and to set up a conversation that could have a moment of conflict, but just diffusing the conflict just by the way you asked your question.
I remember thinking how to win friends and influence people.
Mm-hmm.
That really was a very very good eye opener. And just read and if you go on my website, you'll get a lot of my videos available to you, and it's just practice. Practice. Tone is very important. Women are very sensitive to tone, and ask questions. Hey, I'm curious. Could you explain that to me? I wasn't sure what you meant by that. Could you elaborate on that for me? Um, you know, I had a hard time understanding that. Would you help me understand that?
Mm-hmm.
So, you're not confrontational, you're inquisitive.
And then also, too, the responsibility is that if you are inquisitive, like you said at the beginning, you have to be present. You have to be there. You have to be paying attention to what they're saying and not just say, oh, I'm curious about this, and then drift off and not actually listen to what they're saying.
You have to be aligned.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So this is. Do you have any final thoughts or final pearls of wisdom that you wanted to drop to our menfolk audience?
So, if you just do this one thing, your life will change. Be so amazing you cannot be ignored. And if you are ignored, it doesn't matter because you'll be showing up the best version of you. I promise you, do just this one thing, your life will change.
I love it. That's fantastic. Well, I have a final question for you, Anil, and I ask all of my guests this. Who is someone that you know that I don't know that I should know?
Who's someone I know that you should know? Probably my dad.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, he's 94. He was a crocodile hunter. He's born in Africa. Um, he yeah, just a beautiful man. He owned some businesses. He went through some difficulties. Um, no formal education. Speaks 6 languages.
Wow.
Just a beautiful man. A beautiful man.
That's an incredible model of manhood for you to see as you grew up.
Yeah.
Now, did he teach you about how to have relationships, quality relationships, or is that just something that you just learned?
He didn't, because he was being a man. He was out there, fighting for the family. He'd have a few jobs. He'd work hard. But I just had to handle it my way because I was a coconut. Do you know what a coconut is?
I do not.
You don't know what a coconut is? Oh my gosh.
Well, honestly, my only coconut reference is when Kamala Harris said, "Did you just fall off the coconut tree? You were born in the context with all that you were created." That's my only coconut reference. So lay
So
it on me.
coconut is brown on the outside, white on the inside. Okay, so I would go to school. There were only 3 brown kids. So I tried to be white to blend in. And when I got home, obviously it's all brown people. So I became brown. So it was very confusing for me.
Wow, that's very interesting. So I guess what is your ethnicity, Anil?
So I was born in Kenya,
Okay.
went to India for a few months, didn't like it there, then went to London for 35 years.
Okay.
So I'm Indian origin.
Okay. And your father is of Indian descent?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. That must I'm curious about that conflict. I had never heard that phrase before. That must have been pretty confusing for you as a kid.
Then there's bananas.
Okay. Is that
And,
for
and then
is
there's
that for
Oreos.
Oh my god. Right. I get you.
Yeah, it's because it's hard. If you're coming from one culture and you're coming into the other, you want to fit in. As human beings, we want to fit in, and they're not derogatory terms.
Sure.
Please don't think they're derogatory. It's a visualization of a situation.
I was speaking with when my new friend Parrish. He's a previous episode, and he talked about code switching. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. So code switching. So he's a black man, and he said that he's. And I said, "Is it?" He said, "No, I'm black. Don't call me African American. Call me black, capital B." And the code switch is that one of my white friends would say, "Hey, you speak differently when you're around your black friends than when you do with your white friends." And that's what a code switch. It just
Okay.
switches how he phrases things. And I said, "Wow, that must be kind of not just confusing, but taxing, and a lot to think about all the time." So for you, I guess this is an interesting discussion point if you want to talk about it. And if you don't, not a problem. How did your dad see himself? Did he see himself the same way?
Meaning,
Meaning,
the code switching.
did he think of himself as a quote unquote coconut?
No. He spoke 6 languages, so I would call him a chameleon. He could mix with any ethnicity and speak their language, and he loved that. So, and he was a trader, so he would entertain all sorts of people in all sorts of ways in many forms. So he would a chameleon, or he would be charismatic. He'd get on well with everyone.
And so to him, I guess maybe he had a fluidity and a fluency with relationships, even casual ones.
Yeah, and he got on well with people really well. He loves people, so yeah, he's got that skill set.
Very interesting. Well, clearly you got some of that skill set too, because you seem to be pretty great with people as well.
No, thank you so much.
Well, this has been a delight. I really appreciate you being here. And if there's ever a chance for me to speak with your dad or get to meet him, I'd love to. Is he in the States? Is he in celebration with you?
No, he's in London. He does have a bit of dementia, so
Yeah.
although, he can speak from previous times, and but he speaks 5-6 languages still, so he has his moments.
Wonderful. Well, Anil, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and wishing the audience, listen to this podcast. There's so much great content. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, all right, and thank you, Anil Gupta. Oh man, what fantastic pearls of wisdom that he was dropping. I think a lot of it has to do with being, not just having integrity and being loving and being healthy, but it's that intentionality, right? It's a focus on wanting better relationships, wanting to think about the quality of relationships. And like he talked about, the quality of how you communicate about relationships. I think if you want to do something well, you just work a little bit harder at it if you want to get better at it, right? So what did I learn from Anil? I learned that the quality of my relationship is something that I can improve on with work and effort and with thought and intent. Right? With my spouse, or with my friends, with my children, I can get better at relationships. And you know what? I guess the question is, what's more important than relationships? Probably nothing. Not just the relationship I have with myself, but the relationship I have with the people that I love the most. Having great relationships can change your life. It can change the whole quality of your experience in this world. Right? Maybe instead of focusing on money or focusing on material wealth or status, your focus is instead on, I'm going to build the highest quality relationships I can with the people that I love. And you know what? Even people that I don't know, I can still act in a loving kindness way and have great relationships with them too. And man, doesn't it make life a lot more fulfilling? I think it does. Well, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I hope you joined the conversation. Visit menfolkjourneys.com so we can have a yik yak together and we can learn more about your story. Thank you so much for listening. Word bid Falarid.